I'm pretty sure people will start, sending you DMs. Oh, they will send DMs to Institute Aula Cervantes Yakarta. Yes. So welcome everyone. Let's wait for 5 more minutes. And okay, tadi aku tanya kira-kira dari mana aja ya lokasinya atau asalnya. Boleh ditulis di chat. Kita pengen tahu yang paling jauh dari mana. Nanti yang paling jauh dapat hadiah dari Javier. Kayaknya aku dari tadi ngasih harapan palsu ya. Terakhir dari Depok nih, ada lagi di luar Pulau Jawa, Tangsel. Banjarmasin. Semarang. Pamulang. Pamulang di Jakarta ya. Bandung, Jakarta. Iya, Menteng. Kayak eksotiko.
Taman Ismail Marzuki. Nothing less.
You know, is the bourgeois neighborhood in Jakarta.
Very artistic, upmarket, yes indeed.
No, bourgeois, not artistic, bourgeois.
No, nothing of bourgeois. Team is one of the most aesthetic places. So, but it's right. They have destroyed it. They are doing it on hotel right now. So,
how do you like it there in Menteng? Living in Menteng, how long have you stayed? Have you lived there in Menteng?
2 tahun.
Oh, 2 tahun. Oke, jadi ya teman-teman, Javier ini adalah anak Menteng karena kalau 2 tahun berarti udah bisa dibilang anak Menteng. Angela, ¿cómo se pronuncia? ¿Albacete o Albacete?
Sí, Albacete. Boleh pakai V Albacete atau boleh juga Albacete, nggak apa-apa.
Nah, ini kemarin kita baru ngebahas nih di sesinya Nebriha soal bedanya Spanyol Latin Amerika sama Spanyol. Jadi kita belajar gimana caranya, gimana kalau di Latin Amerika kita bacanya Albacete, tapi kalau di Spanyol bacanya Albacete.
Sí, betul. Di Spanyol juga ada yang bilang Albacete, ada misalnya orang Sevilla kalau nggak salah, ya Javi, di Sevilla atau di beberapa kota yang in a few cities in Andalusia, they use also the S instead of C, no, like in Sevilla or in Cordoba. So some in many places they also pronounce the C as an S.
For instance, one of the real challenges for finding this out is the way they pronounce cerveza, which in my father used theta, so for him is cerveza, and then in Sevilla it will be una cervecita. So it changes. So yeah, it's a real riddle trying to pronounce in different regions what cerveza. So better say Bintang or Cruzcampo or whatever, or Bintang Galicia.
The mystery is to pronounce Zaragoza.
but you know that Zaragoza was nothing but the Latin name of the city, which is Cesar Augusta, which was the Latin name of the city, and with the city, when it was taken over by Muslim, they didn't know how to pronounce Cesar Augusta, and it became Zaragoza, which is the Islamic version of Cesar Augusta. So this is a great example of how Latin turns into Arabic and how that reaches up to Spanish. So Zaragoza is Cesar Augusta.
And how do you pronounce Zara? Zara.
But you should all know that I am more for Berska than I am for Zara.
Because it's much or what?
And then the people doesn't know that both Zara and Bershka are Spanish owned companies.
And also Stradivarius and
Also
what else?
Stradivarius, yeah.
There's is it Pull and Bear also from Spain?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Wow.
Not my style anyway.
So you shop at Bershka? Wow.
No, not really.
Really, no more mystery for you, Javier. You're not mysterious anymore. It's also a Spanish mark.
Somebody said that Pull and Beer is also Spanish. Pipit are the...
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And also, you don't know this, but Chupa Chups is also Spanish.
Oh, yes. And it was designed by Dali, the logo.
Is it really?
Yeah, super cool.
The swirly plastic?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh. Wow, I will think about it every time I buy one.
Because maybe you are buying...
Alfamart juga banyak kan?
You have to buy original Primarita, okay? Not fake.
Pues, ¿cómo puedo conseguir yang asli? Pues, I guess the one in Alfamart is not from Spain anymore. It's probably from, no sé, Bekasi?
From Indonesia, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's localized. What are these famous Spanish brands? Ini kita ngabuburit sebentar ya guys. belum puasa udah ngabuburit. Kita tunggu 3 menit lagi deh buat mulai. Apa lagi ya? What else? What are the other Spanish brands that are popular here? Mango.
Yeah, I believe Mango also belongs to the Inditex enterprise, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it mango?
Wow, Pipit knows everything. Desigual. Half of my wardrobe is Desigual.
Shopaholic nih. Hafal kayaknya semua merek-merek. All right, 3 more minutes. Let's see if there are more people coming in. I will mute myself for a little bit.
Maybe the audience will be able to help me. There was an ancient old movie, Indonesian movie about Al-Andalus. I believe it's from the 80s or from the 90s. It was super famous. And then I forgot the name of the movie. But apparently it was a blockbuster, it was a hit in Indonesia back in the 90s or something. And the movie is entirely about Al-Andalus in Spain. Maybe our very knowledgeable audience might recall the name of the movie. And if so happens, I'm sure the friends from Dime Porque will reward properly with some ole ole.
All the rewards should come from you.
You are hosting.
You're the guest. You're the.
Okay,
you're the...
I can figure out something. I might figure out something. Somebody say Repsol too. That's true. For companies. So I guess we have a very young audience because nobody remembers the 80s or the 90s.
I wasn't even born in the 80s. No, that's a lie.
Yeah, I'm probably the oldest here. Let's leave it that way. Okay, so we have 78. Okay. Triple grapple again. So,
I need to wait for the azan because it's quite loud here in my house. So
okay.
a few minutes.
I can see some faces that I know. I saw my student Rizky Romi. I see Pravovo, Aristo over there. About el protagonista de la película, no lo sé. I haven't seen the movie. I know that the movie exists, and I have already asked my friend about it, but she's offline, which is a good thing, not to be always connected. So, but apparently the movie was about the Indonesian vision of Al-Andalus, of the Islamic Spain, around the 90s. This is all I can say for now. I don't recall more. Hola Nurul, hola Grace. Oh, Muhammad from Jogja.
So
hola, Javier.
Hey, very good to see you. Hola, hola. Well, he's the expert. I should, if Mohammed is here, I should shut my mouth and then he should be presented. Well,
should we change?
Well, at least I expect some questions from him. He is very wise and knowledgeable. So, yeah.
All right. So I guess we will. Oh, can you guys hear me fine?
Mm-hmm.
Lo oyes, lo hablas, lo compartes y juntos lo hacemos crecer. Un idioma que nos incluye, una lengua que hace universal lo diverso, una cultura que cambia la diferencia por entendimiento y construye cada día puentes en un mundo complejo, donde los hablantes del quechua, el catalán o el aymara pueden encontrarse, donde esa identidad compartida tiene un nombre, español. Porque en español se inventó la novela, en español hablaban quienes una y otra vez reinventaron la pintura, y hoy lo hablan los que cada día renuevan la gastronomía del planeta. En español se ganan medallas y se hace ciencia. Por eso cada nuevo hablante de español es un embajador, un hispanista, reflejo de pluralidad y riqueza, de curiosidad y disfrute. Y todos, aunque vivamos aquí y allá, somos hispanistas que llevamos lejos la alegría de la palabra y abrazamos los valores que nos rodean con la fuerza de 1000 acentos. Hispanistas que nunca olvidamos dónde está el lugar en el que desde hace 30 años nos ayudan a ser como somos.
Hola, Hispanistas. It's me again. Good evening and welcome everyone to the second day of Hispanic Week 2021. Thank you so much for joining us here again on Zoom or watching us live on YouTube. I am Primarita from Porque. We are a community of Spanish language students and Hispanic culture enthusiasts based in Jakarta. We regularly organize cultural activities online and offline, and we also collaborate with other communities and embassies of Hispanic countries and Spanish language schools. All right, as usual, some reminders before we start. For everyone on Zoom, please remember to mute your microphones when you're not talking. For everyone on Zoom and YouTube, I encourage you to ask questions during the presentation in the chat because we will have some prizes for the best questions at the end of the session. Don't worry, you can ask it any language. Bisa nanya dalam bahasa apa aja, bahasa Indonesia, bahasa Inggris, bahasa Spanyol. Semuanya bisa. Okay. Just to inform you that this session is recorded and you have difficulties connecting to Zoom, you can also watch us live or later on our YouTube playlist, which you can access from bit.do/HW21live. The link is also on your invitation email, our Instagram, our open, so it's everywhere. Okay, so super important. We also have an Insta story competition with grand prizes from our sponsor, Line Open Chat Indonesia. All you have to do is to post during any of the sessions before midnight, okay? So for example, if you're going to post from this session, you have to post before you go to bed tonight, okay? So don't forget the hashtag at hashtag Hispanic Week 21 and mention us at dime.por.k, our partner at line.indo, and of course, our speaker for tonight, which is Instituto Cervantes Yakarta at Aula Cervantes Yakarta. Okay, Jakarta is spelled Yakarta, not Jakarta. Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen so that I can see all of you here. Great. Okay, so we have a super interesting session tonight. Please stay until the end because we have a surprise for you guys. I have been keeping this a secret for a few days now, so I'm so relieved and happy that you guys are going to find out about it. Right, without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker tonight, Javier Serrano, Pak Javier, coordinator of Instituto Cervantes Yakarta. Hola, Javier, how are you? You're still on mute. I'm sorry, I just muted you. The other. Yes. Hola.
Selamat malam.
Selamat
Buenas
malam.
noches. Good evening. First of all, I'm super happy to be here. A few reasons for that. First of them is that Dime Por Qué is probably one of the most dynamic institutions promoting Spanish in Indonesia. And that simply deserves recognition from Instituto Cervantes and from the Spanish Embassy, because our mission is actually to support any institution who promotes and work on the diffusion of Spanish. And so Dime Por Qué is doing an excellent work on that. We are very much aware of this at the Instituto Cervantes and the Spanish Embassy. So first of all, we are super happy to be with Dime Por Qué. Then second is that we are celebrating 30th anniversary for Instituto Cervantes, promoting Spanish all over the world. So for us, it's a beautiful year because we are actually celebrating what we are doing here, which is spreading out and promoting Spanish language and Spanish-speaking cultures, which are very many. And then the third element or aspect that makes me very happy and excited to be here tonight is that we are going to talk about a very relevant common point between Spain and Indonesia, which is the Islamic heritage and influence in culture. So, well, everything fits super nicely and neatly. So I'm looking forward to starting. But first of all, saying I'm thanked for the opportunity to speak tonight and to interact with all the friends from Dime Por Qué, which I see are scattered all over the archipelago. We have people from all over, right? And then I will start with a presentation. My presentation doesn't intend to cover everything, nor intends to be very deep, but rather I will give several hints of the importance of the Islamic heritage in Spain. So let me start by sharing the screen and some of the information. Okay. I mentioned earlier that we have identified that one of the connections that Spain has with Indonesia is precisely the huge shared heritage and common culture through the Islam. And I'm going to, well, I have selected few elements that will put forward this shared heritage and common connection. But yet for me, it's even so more important because I'm Andalusian myself. I'm coming from the region, Al-Andalus, Andalusia, which is named after this, and it was not only named, but shaped in many ways after the influence by many centuries of Islam. And not only is a matter of the past, but it's still in the present. We find Islamic presence, particularly in Granada, but also in all over cities in Andalusia. So being Andalusian myself, I couldn't be any happier talking about this. So, okay, having said all that, let's do it. Let's go. And I'm going to start with 3 facts about Islam and Spain. I have, if we were to be exact, I have to talk, or I have to mention Portugal and the Iberian Peninsula too, because at the time they will be intermingled in many ways. I will refer to Spain, but I should be, or you should know that in many ways Portugal is included in all or in many of the topics that I'm going to cover. So 3 statements to open all this. The first is Islam. I read earlier in here is the map of the arrival and the spreading out of Islam in Indonesia. And if Islam started in the 7th century, it arrives in Indonesia starting from early 13th century, from Sumatra, from North Sumatra to Aceh, but it is not fully spread out up until 15th or 17th century. So actually the arrival of Islam into Indonesia is rather late in comparison to other countries, and particularly Spain. So Islam starts in Spain nothing less than 500 years before it starts in Indonesia. So this is to say that somehow, in historical terms, we have a longer tradition of having Islam on our country, on our grounds. This is the first statement. Islam in Indonesia arrived earlier. Sorry, Islam in Spain arrived earlier than Indonesia, probably 500 or so years earlier. The second is that the lifespan when Islam started to expand from the Arabian Peninsula towards Northern Africa up until to Spain, it happened very fastly. And it so happens because Islam was very progressive, very revolutionary. And I will just give a hint of it. Former religions were aligned to ethnicity. For instance, for you to belong to a religion, you should belong first to the community or to the ethnia. There were very few religions that will be open to international people. Okay, and one of the incredible changes that came up with Islam is that Islam was really international and multicultural in a way that it doesn't look into your background. And so it spread out massively in very short time. So in less than 100 years, bear in mind that 100 years, I mean, the means of motion and transport and everything were much slower. Well, at that time, it was super fast spreading out, and it was very successful. So first statement, Islam in Indonesia arrives way later than it did in Spain. But then the second statement is Islam in Spain, it's already present, but it was the major presence for 800 years. Well, this is 800 years is exactly the same time span of Islam in Indonesia. So those 800 years is exactly the same time that is shared by the Islam in Spain, by Islam in Indonesia. So yet another coincidence. And then this is not only it was most of the time of the history. Bear in mind that of Spanish history, more or less, Islamic heritage means something of 1/3 of our history. If we have more or less 2,000 years history, let's say that Islamic heritage is 1/3 of it. So it's substantial. But then not only in time span, but also in geography. When Islam came, it took over most of the Iberian Peninsula, and that's where I say it's not only Spain, but Portugal. The Christian remains retreat over the north, and they were marginal at the time. Okay, so I said there will be three statements. One is Islam arrived earlier in Spain than Indonesia. Second is Islam in Indonesia and in Spain, it has been present for 800 years. And the last one will be within Europe. Spain keeps the strongest Islamic and cultural heritage in the whole entire region. So no other country throughout Europe, maybe to a lesser extent, we could say of southern Italy, Naples and Sicily and so on. but nothing in comparison to Spain. So this is to say that of all European countries, Spanish is the one having the strongest Islamic roots and Islamic influence. So even though we are talking about the past, we will see that many things of our present life is related to Islam in Indonesia. So those three statements for now. And then I will add a fourth one, which is Al-Andalus or Andalusia, which was the name of the Spanish under the Islamic times, was nothing less but the most civilized region of Europe at the time. And I will just give hints of it. But this is very important because the level of civilization, development, and innovation that came along with Islam, it's beyond comparison. I mean, it's difficult to overrate. You have Islamic influence of Spanish culture in every single aspect, from art to thought and philosophy, from technology, from you name it. I'm going to share some of them. And here we have the first, having said that Andalusia was one region that precisely because it was under the Islam or the Muslim culture and civilization, it was particularly advanced in comparison to the rest of the Iberian Peninsula or the rest of the Spanish and the rest of Europe. So this is to say that Islam made not only a huge impact, but it was way more advanced at the time that we are talking. Bear in mind that here Islam arrived, as we say, it started in 1661, and by early in the 700, in the 8th century, it was already all over the Iberian Peninsula. And one of the things that helped to develop the Al-Andalus was the urbanization. With Al-Andalus, the cities became much bigger than they were under the Christian time. Bear in mind that the size of cities and the complexity of cities is one of the indicators of civilization. And it so happened because of a number of reasons, but one of them was water management. Coming back from the culture of desert, water management was crucial for most of the Muslim culture. And so water wells, fountains, channels, irrigation culture, and gardens are very much the highlights of any Islamic city in Spain. Because water management, bear in mind that for instance, we see here the water wheel. That was a technological innovation by the Al-Andalus time. With better water management, you get to increase not only the population, but also the industry that goes with it, and many other things, such as I said earlier, such as agriculture, but also gardens and so on. So with Al-Andalus and with the water management came a population boost, and that increase on population developed the urban future of Spain. And so the cities of Al-Andalus were really big cities, such as Cordoba, but also Seville, and later on Granada. They were big metropolis with multicultural inhabitants. Okay, so now we know that it was very developed, and it was very developed not only in terms of ideas, but also in very specific elements related to technology. that major cities develop very well-structured neighborhoods, and we are seeing here the former Islamic neighborhood in Granada, El Albaicín, which is actually facing the Alhambra or Alhambra, which is well, I would say the highlight of the Al-Andalus heritage in Spain. But I will focus now on the village. And the village, not only, it was not just water management, but it was also how the different neighborhoods were organized, including markets or bazaar or pasar, and then all the services surrounding the mosques. For instance, any mosque had a fountain, a water supply nearby, and also there were the equivalent of hostal, alquerías at the time. So I say the level of urbanization of that came with Al-Andalus was completely new. And then it came up with also technology that became a footprint for Andalusia, and that is painted the houses in white. It so happened because white doesn't absorb much of the heat, and then Andalusia and also Northern Africa and more so the Arabian Peninsula, all the architectural design is for the houses to keep as fresh and with low temperature. That is done through house being painted in white, which is very much one of the trademark of the Andalusian architecture. And that is entirely from the background of the Al-Andalus Islamic heritage. So many of our cities and many of our architecture, I mean, this is to say, the house of my parents is painted in white. So when I'm talking about history, I have to say that it really reaches out nowadays of our culture in Andalusia, regardless of it being Christian or Muslim, but now it belongs to everyone's culture. Moving on from urban development, the heritage was particularly crucial when it comes to science and technology. And I will just mention 3 hints or 3 elements. The first one will be surgery. During the classical Greek and Roman times, the idea of medicine was around towards a book and well, it was a medical doctor, Galeno, but the theory of Galeno was completely and entirely wrong, and so the classical medicine in the Mediterranean, in Europe, was very backwards. With the Islam, and particularly with the Middle East, which happened with Baghdad and so on, with the development, the new medicine, it became a new medicine came up, and it was very practical, and it was no longer based on Galeno. Galeno used la teoría de los humores, or the humor therapy theory, which is based on 4 humors, dry and humid, heat and cold. Well, that combination was meant to organize the whole health system. Well, this is, I would say, this is completely inaccurate, or very inaccurate. And it was the Islamic pragmatic and empirist research that changed this mentality, and it started to practice. And the first surgery, the idea of surgery and doing interventions and changing things within the body, was entirely done was an innovation that came with the Al-Andalus and the Islam. The second one is super important, and it's maths. Sometimes the Roman numbers It starts with one, but it fails to have a concept for the zero. And this is quite of a tricky thing, because having something representing nothing, or having a sign that represents emptiness or represents nothing, it's quite of a paradox. So no Roman came up with this idea. So there was no sign to represent emptiness of the vacuum of the zero. But then it was the Indians, not who created, or they reflected of the importance of nothing, of the importance of zero, and that zero changed completely the mathematics, because the zero is crucial for calculations and so on. So the zero was not the idea of zero, or the concept of something representing nothing, which I say is pretty much of a riddle, of a paradox. It was Indian in origin, but it was spread out through Islam, through the Muslim culture. And so it reached out to the Europe, and our numbers right now are not Roman numbers, even though Roman and Greek are a big element of our tradition, but they are Arabic number backdating to Indian numbers. So, and they are simply Arabic numbers because they are far better for calculating, and far more accurate. Then I will move to the third element, which is astronomy. Now for us, astronomy is kind of a bit of a hobby, but back in time, astronomy was the only way to navigate. And it was so important that the only way of sailing, of getting your bearings and orientation, was through the stars. So the development of mathematics, which is theory, became technology with the astrolabe. The astrolabe, for you to know, I mean, to get a good example of it, it will be the equivalent to the actual computers, to our computers today and the sophisticated calculators. It is what the contemporary example of astrolabes. And they were used precisely for getting orientations in their long journeys. They were so important that right now, Spain and Portugal, we are celebrating the 500 years, along with Indonesia, of the first circumnavigation, done by Magallanes Elcano, whose final destination was Maluku, Ternate Antidore. Actually, we just came from 1 week in Ternate Antidore, where we have been celebrating with the authorities there many events for this. So we can have a memory of this celebration. Well, this could not have been done without the theory of mathematics being more accurate, and the technology of this applied theory into astronomy by the astrolabe. So even something so Spanish and so Portuguese as the 500 years of the first circumnavigation has somehow it's indebted into the Muslim tradition and Muslim technology. I move now, and this is one of my favorite example of how Europe will never be Europe without the aid and the contribution of Muslim culture. There's probably no other philosopher so important for the European culture than Aristotle. Aristotle, he has a huge impact in the way we conceive politics, democracy, ethics. He wrote about everything. But the funny thing is, he got lost. Aristotle, the books of Aristotle, they were kept in Europe, but only for a while. And after in the Middle Ages, the books of Aristotle were lost, but some of the books of Aristotle were kept in Northern Africa, and it was kept in Arabic. So Aristotle, who wrote in Greek, and it was very much the heart of the European culture, it got lost, and it was kept precisely in a foreign language, in the Arabic translation, and it came back into Europe, which actually lost the books of Aristotle in Arabic. And it was translated from Arabic into Latin by this scholar, Ibn Rushd, which in Spanish is Averroes. Averroes was the translator and commentator of Aristotle, and he was the one who brought back Aristotle's first knowledge to Europe. And so it continued being studied in Paris, in Sorbonne, and in many other universities. But without Averroes or Ibn Rushd, and without the Aristotle who was kept in Arabic under the Muslim culture, Europe would have lost one of the key elements of its culture. So something that is very close to the deep heart of the identity was lost, and it was recovered through these Islamic scholars and in Arabic version. Then the next one will be not just in philosophy, but also in the idea of how Islam is configured and thought. Bear in mind that Spain turns into Islam at the very beginning of Islam. So Islam configures itself at the same time that Spain is being configured. And one of the key elements of Al-Andalus is that Al-Andalus is a deep, is a region that is very fertile in theology, but not only in theology, but also in mysticism, and in a very particular branch of it, which is Sufism. A good number of authors that are paramount for the very beginning of the establishing of the Islamic theology, and particularly modern theology, I would say, mysticism and Sufism. It's Al-Andalus authors such as Ibn Arabi, which is from Al-Andalus, and Ibn Arabi is very famous here in Indonesia, and we have many scholars, particularly from, my colleague and friend Zainul Marif from Paramadina University. He just wrote a commentary of Ibn Arabi, but not only Ibn Arabi, but we have also great authors such as Al-Mansur, which comes from Murcia. There are very many authors from Al-Andalus that they really have an impact, and they configure the way Islam is created, and they are read as part of the Islamic broad heritage. But the truth is, they are coming from Islam. So here's to say that Spanish, not only Islam influenced Spain, but the Spain, Al-Andalus, influenced Islam very much. So what we consider right now Islamic tradition goes back into Al-Andalus, particularly, as I said, the branch of Sufism and the mystics. Okay, so we have seen. Now we are going to move into the idea of religious tolerance. If you look through history, there are basically two models for society: the warriors who conquer and impose their culture, their tradition, their laws, their gods, or rather than fighters and warlike civilizations, we have civilizations which are multicultural, and they are based on tolerance, and they thrive with commerce, because commerce is the economic aspect of diversity. One of the key elements is that, no doubt, Al-Andalus was predominantly under Islam, but it was at the same time they allow Christians to live, and also Jews to live. So it was a time with, of course, it was not ideal or idyllic, if you want to, but it was a time of religious tolerance, and I have to say that the trend of Christianism that came right after was not particularly tolerant. So not only Spain provided ingredients for the development of the general Islam through Al-Andalus or Sufi masters, but it also remains as a reference for religious tolerance and different communities from. So it somehow connects very well with the Pancasila in Indonesia. Then, along with that, I will just make a quick overview of probably the most important element, which is architectural heritage. Andalusia, it's filled up with monuments, and those monuments are mostly or very significantly from the Al-Andalus time, because if it was very rich and prosperous, then it shows in the quantity, but mostly in the quality of the architecture. Here you have a small sketch of one of the sections of the Alhambra. I will just mention two things. Tourism in Indonesia is very important, it's paramount. It's one of the sources of income, and Indonesian strategy towards tourism is super important. Indonesia receives something like 16 million tourists a year. Spain is also one of the touristic destinations. The difference here is that Spain receives around 75 up to 80 million tourists a year. Bear in mind, Indonesia 16 million, Spain around 75. Spain received twice. Bear in mind that Spain have 45 million population. So we receive every year twice the population of Spain in tourism. The Alhambra is, along with the Sagrada Familia, the most visited monument in Spain. The Alhambra alone receives every year 2.5 million tourists. So it is the Alhambra itself accounts for a big chunk of the tourist attraction in Spain. I was very fortunate to live 4 years in Granada and to visit the Alhambra every now and then, including with my students. So I know it well and I like it very much. The Alhambra is basically three things. It's a castle, it's a fort, then it is palaces, and I use the plural because it's not one, but it's many palaces. And then it's the gardens of Generalife, which they serve as a sort of summer retreat house. In the Alhambra at the time, they were living nothing less than 3,000 people. And one of the beauty of it is that from outside the Alhambra, you will see something like a rusty castle. So from outside, it looks very unpolished and rude and warlike. But then from within is a true palace. So there is no bragging, there is no showing off outside, but the inwards, as you see, and this is very very specific of Islamic architecture, is that you keep the richness for yourself towards the inside, not the outside. And the second important element is, as I mentioned earlier, the water and the gardens. You have water everywhere because water is a sign of life, but it's also a spiritual symbol. And every single building has some water connection, some water tanks, some water channels. So this richness, and this is funny because at the time, water and buildings were opposed. You don't have water in the building. There's no running water. So this was a complete new innovation to have water running through the stones. That was completely unknown. So this is somehow having something alive into an static structure. Here you have the two major the buildings of Alhambra, and I will not delve much into the symbolism of it, but you always see the combination of water, garden, and you see this is called Patio of Arrayanes because it's the plant that you get to see over there, and the stone and the decoration. I will just mention on the second one, which is Patio de los Leones, or the lions. This is particularly interesting because now I'm going to say something that I'm not completely sure of, and it requires more research. But Islamic is the Spanish Islam and the Indonesian Islam share something, which is that they are particularly unorthodox. The Orthodox Islam comes from Cairo and comes from the Arabic Peninsula. But then there's a lot of Spain on the one hand, and then Indonesia on the other hand, being far away from the cosmopolis where the Orthodox and the the classical theology is done. That makes that the religion in Indonesia and the religion in Al-Andalus has some very indigenous, local, and therefore unorthodox elements. Here you have an example. Throughout Islam, the representation of living, be it person, of animals, is completely forbidden. It's the Orthodox rule of orientation is no decoration should be based on representation of animals. And yet we have a fountain sustained by 12 lions. In Indonesia, we have something similar, which is the whole representation and dances of the Ramayana. Not only they are not of Islamic origin, they are of Hindu origin, but they are basically theater, which is completely unknown in the rest of the Islamic culture. And it is so because somehow the Islam in Al-Andalus and the Islam in Indonesia adapted very much to the local previous culture and is embedded of all of it. So, and so far, I would say that is somehow unorthodox when compared to the actual Middle East orthodoxy. And it has many ingredients that you wouldn't see anywhere else. So both Islams, the Al-Andalus and the Indonesia, being very distant from the very heart of the Islamic tradition, from the Al-Azhar Mosque in Cairo, they have rare examples such as the Ramayana performances or the representation, the sculptures of lions in the Al-Andalus in Granada. I will move faster a bit now. Bigger mosque at the time was in Cordoba. Cordoba was the capital of the Islamic Empire, the Western Islamic Empire. And then here we have a major mosque with, it has lots of columns. It's like a forest of columns. And then, as you see, when the Christians came over, the cathedral, the Christian cathedral was put in the middle of the mosque. That happens all of the time. Christian churches are built over Islamic mosques, but yet Islamic mosques are built over Roman churches. So this is every sacred temple of sacred land, it's taken over by the new religion that comes. Yet, I have to say that if you compare the Islamic mosque and the Christian cathedral, there is no stand for comparison. And even the design of it is completely Muslim. You see the huge backyard with the garden, which you don't get to see in the cathedral. The minaret, which is actually the bell for the tower bell, is a minaret, and well, the entire structure is completely Muslim or Islamic, where the Spanish tradition has been somehow imposed. Same happens with the Giralda of Sevilla, which is the old minaret of the mosque, which was turned into the Catholic cathedral. It was originally, you have the different stages of the evolution of this minaret, and how the minaret, the Islamic minaret, end up being a Christian church bell. Yet it is mostly the Christian part is just a small additions. They are mostly the basic structure and decoration of the building remains as such, and you can find very similar minarets in Northern Africa, so they are completely comparable. Here is the Alcázar of Sevilla, which was done not by under the Islamic era, but it was done by the Christian. When the Christians conquered Seville in the 13th century, they find that the architecture and the artisans are so much advanced that the Christians kings, they build the palaces in the Islamic way, in the Islamic manner. So this is, and because the artisans were much more advanced. So, and this is an example of Alcázar de Sevilla, where let's say that Islamic architecture was so fashionable that the Christian kings will will not go for the Christian architecture, but they will go for the Islamic architecture, even though they were Christians. So here again, you have an example of how different traditions intermingle to each other, and how and how much the Islamic tradition is very well present. Okay. You probably don't know that there is an Andalusia house here in Menteng, and there is in Jalan Tashimalaya, we have Roma Andalusia and Roma Morocco, and they try to recreate the Al-Andalus style in here. This is a private house, but they are open for functions, and you can rent it out for, I don't know, whatever function you want. I have the privilege of having visited it, and it is truly, it's two houses in one. It's House Morocco and House Andalusia, but it's one of the, it's a present memory of Al-Andalus in Indonesia. Then I have to say that I live in Menteng, very close to Taman Ismail Marzuki. When I walk by in the Kampung nearby, there is a coast called Al-Andalus in here. So the memories of Al-Andalus is very much alive. And then, if I'm not mistaken, beyond the POC, There is a peasant trend also called Al-Andalus. So, I mean, there is very much a live memory, probably not very exact or not very precise, but there is a memory of Al-Andalus. And then Al-Andalus is so incredible that it became fiction, and it became fiction through Game of Thrones. I will just play a video where you will find that many of these monuments, of these Muslim monuments, has been selected as staging many of the, or a good number of the episodes of Game of Thrones. So you better see it. As you see, most of the scenes, they are coming from the Alcázar de Sevilla, which I mentioned earlier. It's Christians try to do the buildings and the architecture in the fashionable Muslim manner. Not only now, we move from something so material such as stone and architecture to something so volatile such as words. Many words, and particularly technological ones, in current Spanish come from Arabic origins. Some of them, I mean, we have very many a good chunk of them starting with al, whatever it is, or wadal for rivers. They are from Arabic origin, including the name of the region, of my region, Andalusia, which I mentioned earlier. But there are so many others, such as so important for the Spanish cultures, such as aceite or that, and not only for it's not only the impact. I started saying that the development of the cities was very much part of the Islamic influence. And it was not just the architecture of the city, but also the political organization of it. And then alcalde, which is each city mayor, it's coming from Arabic origin. Something so important as, for instance, ojalá, which is the Spanish for inshallah, or sucara, well, por azúcar. But the most important, or one of the most important one, will be guitarra, and that allows me to move into the next one. We started with very palpable and tangible heritage with stones, but now we are moving to intangible heritage words, and the next one is music. One of the highlights of Spanish culture is flamenco music. Flamenco music has its deep roots into the Islamic tradition, because flamenco, for starters, is coming from Andalusia, which is the Islamic region. But rather than me talking about flamenco, I think that it will be far better and way more fun to get exposed a bit to flamenco. And to that end, we have a bit of a surprise tonight, and it's we are so lucky to have an outstanding flamenco guitarist player in Indonesia. He lives in Bali, Adien, and he well, I have to say that he's been just with us in Ternate Antidore performing flamenco music in Maluku last week. We were together, Adien and I. And as I said, rather than me talking about flamenco, I think it's much better if you get exposed to some real and very good flamenco by Adien. So Adien, we are very lucky to have you. All yours.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Adin. I'm a flamenco guitar player. Ini ngomong bahasa Indonesia apa Inggris aja ya? In English aja ya?
Bisa campur-campur, bisa gado-gado.
Campur-campur ya, campur-campur.
Indonesia juga boleh.
Oke, kayaknya lebih menarik kalau aku bersama istriku aja nih ngomong soal flamenco, karena dia bisa lebih detail soal ini. Jadi dalam berbagai aspek gitu kan, karena because I only having few aspect about flamenco from the guitar and from not so wide like Angela have it, yeah. So for me, flamenco, where should I start about this? Di mana nih harus mulainya? Mungkin dari pertanyaan aja kali langsung ya tentang flamenco ya.
Bisa dimulai dengan sebuah lagu, Mas.
Oke. Sebuah lagu ya.
Udah nggak sabar loh ini kita semua pengen
Oke, aku akan main. Jadi mulai dari jadi di flamenco tuh ada genre kan, dibilangnya tuh palos gitu. Nah, palos itu di flamenco tuh macam-macam, so many palos, so many genres, like, and then even there's a city that having their own palos gitu kan, like in Jerez they have bulerias, if I'm not mistaken they have tangos also, and in Sevilla they have sevillanas, something like that. So even they make it this genre is more authentic. It's such a like a character from the city. Yeah, this is so far what I know, and then next Angela can explain it more about this. So I'm gonna play like they call it the mother of the genre, the mother of the palos. The name is Solea. So when I start to play flamenco, and when you want to learn the flamenco, this is one of the palos that being introduced to you to learn not only about the guitar, about how to play with the clap, the palmas, and the way the singer sing, the melody, and so Solea is one of like it's very good for the foundation as if you want to learn about the flamenco. Oke, jadi saya coba main dulu ya. Dan di sini saya pakai gitar dari Spanyol, mereknya Alhambra. Actually, I'm their brand ambassador in Indonesia, so this is one and the only flamenco guitar. And in Indonesia, if you want to buy a flamenco guitar, so this is one of the brand. sekalian ini ya, sekalian promo ya.
Gak apa-apa Mas, boleh.
Gak apa-apa ya. Dan ini juga, ini namanya capo. Pasti udah tahu capo, tapi di sini ini capo khusus untuk main flamenco, dibuatnya dari kayu gini dan ada sedikit kayak kulit terus diikat pakai benang. Jadi ini tradisional capo, dibilangnya sejia. Dan ini kebetulan temen aku yang buat dari Spain. Ini kayak gini-gini harganya mahal juga nih. Oke ya, aku langsung main. Ya, ini Solea. Kedengeran nggak suaranya? Kedengeran ya?
Taruh.
Segitu aja ya.
Aplauso.
Oke. Gimana
Yeay.
mau mulai tanya apa soal flamenco? Oke.
Kalau ada yang pengen tanya-tanya soal flamenco, ini benar loh. Kita beruntung sekali buat tamu ini karena mereka adalah maestronya flamenco di Indonesia loh. Jadi kesempatannya sangat berharga sekali kalau misalnya teman mau nanya. Ada yang mau tanya, langsung nyala aja mikrofonnya, nggak perlu pakai chat, nanti chat buat yang tadi udah masuk aja.
Oke, saya boleh tanya. Halo.
Tanya langsung unmute aja.
Halo.
Ya, halo.
Yes. Por favor.
Halo Mas Adian, saya Muhammad Utama. Sebentar. Jadi saya penggemar flamenco. Cuma mau nanya, di Indonesia bisa nggak sih kita belajar flamenco di mana gitu tempatnya? Dan kalau pandemi gini ada yang online atau enggak ya? Gitu. Dan terus kemudian kalau sulit atau enggak itu kan relatif ya. Tapi dari orang yang sudah belajar flamenco berapa banyak yang menyerah sih? Itu aja.
Waduh. Yang dua ini yang jelas nggak menyerah nih.
Ya. Oke, aku jawab dulu ya. Untuk belajar flamenco itu saat ini di Indonesia itu belum ada untuk gitar ya. Cuman ada beberapa teman kayaknya yang ngajar juga flamenco di Jakarta. Mungkin kayak Mas Dimas, Toto, atau mungkin si Zaki juga dari komunitas. Kita ada komunitas flamenco Indonesia namanya. Di situ bisa ada infonya. Terus kalau untuk yang paling bukan di depan sih ya, paling lebih ke expose untuk ngajar flamenco saat ini kayaknya baru aku ya, yang lebih militan gitu untuk ngajar flamenco karena sering terlibat dengan kedutaan Spanyol gitu kan. Terus dan sekarang aku juga ada kerjasama dengan brand ini kan, dengan Alhambra. Terus ya aku jadi lebih militan lah untuk ngajar flamenco, dan kebetulan aku juga ngajar online. Aku ada beberapa murid flamenco yang di Bogor sama di Australia, itu orang Indonesia juga, jadi aku kebetulan buka kelas online. Untuk sulitnya itu sebenarnya nggak sulit, cuman masalah konsisten aja sih gitu kan, masalah konsisten dan tahap-tahap belajarnya gitu kan. Dan kebetulan aku gunain beberapa kurikulum buku yang aku kira cukup bagus untuk belajar flamenco, untuk pengenalan flamenco gitu kan. Sedangkan karena aku sendiri juga masih dalam proses belajar ya, karena cukup sulit sih di Indonesia ini karena bukan asing sih ya, karena nggak banyak gitu, jadi kita nggak punya banyak cermin untuk ngeliat gitu, untuk sebagai tolak ukur gitu kan. Kalau main musik lain, gitar listrik misalnya atau nggak gitar kan banyak nih yang main, jadi kita punya tolak ukur, punya mirror lah gitu. Nah di flamenco ini sebenarnya yang paling butuh itu adalah itu. Masalahnya bukan masalah udah bisa jago atau udah bisa macam-macam, enggak, tapi ada lebih banyak orang yang mencoba untuk main itu akan membantu banget seperti herd immunity lah di flamenco gitu kan. Jadi kalau semakin banyak itu dia akan semakin bagus, karena kalau semakin sering dengar ada orang main kan kita akan kebiasa. Dan buat aku flamenco ini penting banget sih buat Indonesia gitu, karena pertama kita punya budaya kultur budaya Islam yang cukup banyak gitu kan di beberapa daerah, dari musik Melayu. Terus kita ada banyak lah yang bernuansa Timur Tengah yang itu sangat dekat sekali dengan flamenco. Misalnya contohnya seperti ini. Ini adalah grenek dari Melayu ya, dan ini mirip banget dengan flamenco, kayak gini nih. Ini grenek Melayu, lagu Melayu yang aku coba aplikasiin dengan teknik flamenco gitu. Jadi ini baru contoh kecil kan. Jadi kalau flamenco ini berkembang di Indonesia, wah kita akan mempunyai suatu eksplorasi budaya yang besar banget gitu, dan bakal berpengaruh ke berbagai macam sektor. Bukan cuma musik Melayu doang, mungkin musik dangdut akan lebih banyak variasi juga di situ. Jadi sebenarnya sih aku cukup militan untuk ini karena aku ngelihat potensi itunya sih. Apalagi sekarang temanya di Hispanic Week ini antara budaya di Andalusia dengan impact-nya dari budaya Muslim ya. Dan ini kita adalah keseharian kita sebagai orang Indonesia gitu. Jadi bagus banget tema ini dan untuk mengangkat musik flamenco ke lebih banyak lagi di sini sebagai wacana baru gitu kan. Itu bagus juga. Terus ya dari kira-kira itu Muhammad.
Oke. Perfecto. Ada lagi pertanyaan soal flamenco? Mungkin mau tanya ke Angela. Angela bisa bahasa Indonesia loh. Boleh
Halo.
tanya.
Aku sebenarnya lihat ada di chat ini ada beberapa pertanyaan. Mungkin aku bisa jawab aja.
Boleh.
Karena ada yang tanya, how did the Muslim culture help shape and influence the Andalus culture such as flamenco? Jadi sebenarnya itu agak susah sedikit kalau kita mau nyari siapa yang pengaruh siapa. Tapi memang ada pengaruh dari musik flamenco, dari musik Islam. Cuman karena lama banget ada orang Muslim di Spanyol dan dicampur sama banyak budaya lain juga. Memang susah dibilang, tapi ada beberapa elemen yang pasti datang dari budaya Islam. Misalnya alat gitar itu, Javi tadi udah bilang istilah gitara itu datang dari bahasa Arab kan. Jadi sebenarnya alat musik gitar itu datang dari laut, dari ud, ya. Ya itu salah satu. Ada satu lagi untuk sistem musik flamenco, tapi bukan hanya untuk flamenco, tapi juga untuk musik-musik lain yang ada di Spanyol, misalnya di daerah musik folklore yang sudah ada dari 300 tahun paling enggak. Misalnya yang namanya Andalusian cadence itu sistemnya ada namanya tetrachord. Jadi ada empat nada atau 4 chord yang dibuat di atas nada-nada itu datang dari budaya Arab. Tapi sebelum itu sebenarnya tetrachord itu yang untuk bikin Andalusian cadence itu juga ada di nyaman Yunani. Jadi sebenarnya itu agak susah kalau kita mau cari itu asalnya di mana, asalnya dari mana, atau siapa yang bikin duluan. It's very complicated to find the origins and who did first and who influenced each other. Tapi ada satu lagi yang memang sampai sekarang kita kalau misalnya dengar penyanyi flamenco itu baru di situ ketahuan kan, nggak bisa disembunyiin karena nyanyi flamenco itu pertama mirip banget dengan cara nyanyi di negara-negara Afrika Utara atau Arabia, dan juga mirip banget dengan cara untuk baca Al-Quran karena ada teknik yang khusus. Jadi di situ kita bisa, mungkin dari situ yang paling kelihatan ada budaya, ada Islam di gitar dan di nyanyi. Beberapa aspek-aspek lain dari flamenco modern mungkin sudah itu sebenarnya is a construction of the last century. Flamenco modern itu ada sedikit dari nyaman dulu, tapi kebanyakan dibikin baru. Mungkin kalau untuk nyanyi, saya lanjut dengan nyanyi. Ada satu lagi yang tanya, gimana? Just curious, can a pop song played in flamenco style? Example, Pablo Alborán, Alejandro Sanz song. Ya, jadi nyanyi flamenco itu sebenarnya ada, ya kita pakai scale tangga nada yang khusus, ya. Dan juga ada teknik vokal sama dengan gitar kan, kalau kita main gitar dan kita pakai rasgeo yang gimana memang kedengaran flamenco, padahal nada-nadanya bisa jadi dari musik pop juga. Kalau untuk nyanyi flamenco sama, kamu bisa ambil lagu pop, terus kamu perubah suaranya. Aku kasih contoh ya,
Contoh-contoh lagu Indonesia dong, lagu Indonesia.
Yang seperti apa? Yang ampar-ampar pisang. Gimana liriknya? Aku lupa. Pisang kuning.
Pisangku belum
Aku lupa.
masak.
Pisangku belum masak. Ya, kalau kita mau dibikin flamenco, tinggal perubah suaranya dan cara untuk bikin ornamen. Jadi, ampar-ampar pisang, pisangku belum matang. Jadi suaranya kita arahin, resonansinya kita arahin ke hidung, dan juga ada kayak ampar, daripada ampar. Ampar pisang, pisangku belum matang. Jadi mau ambil lagu apa aja, dari mana aja, kamu bisa dibikin flamenco. Tinggal belajar itu teknik untuk vokal
lagu susu nasional bisa dibikin flamenco ya.
Susu murni nasional. Susu murni nasional.
Dios mío, I would never hear that song the same way ever again. Oke, ada satu pertanyaan lagi mungkin dari Megan. Megan, do you want to ask your question on with your microphone or just with the chat?
I think I can ask because I'm already speaking. Hola, Angela. I have a question about the Spanish pop group called Estopa. I believe that they also use flamenco influence in a few of their songs. Have you ever heard of maybe their most famous one? For example, Por la caja de tu falda, I think that's the name.
Sí, I have.
Is it still popular today to incorporate flamenco to pop songs, maybe other genres?
Yeah, actually, yes. In Spain, since like around 20 years ago, pop bands, rock bands, they take like some elements of the flamenco music, like for example, techniques for the guitar. You just put the techniques for the guitar behind whatever, and it already sounds flamenco. And in the case of Estopa, the system of the music is just pop, but the singer has this kind of voice, like mirip sedikit sama flamenco, the way of singing. So it's very, very common and very easy. Even there are people who is mixing flamenco with hip hop, with rap, with any kind of music, jazz, of course, classical music, whatever. It's just about choosing some of the elements, or either the instruments, or either the techniques you use to play those instruments or to sing, or either the language, like using this Andalusian cadence or the Phrygian mode or those scales, and it can become kind of flamenco.
Yes.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. Okay, so Mas Adin mungkin ada lagu yang pengen dimainin lagi karena
Oke ya. Sebagai penutup,
mungkin satu lagi habis kita ke pertanyaan yang lain buat Javier. Pertanyaan buat Javier.
Oke. Aku akan main genre yang biasanya dipakai kalau misalnya lagi konser sebagai penutupan biasanya. Ini berasal dari kota Jerez, namanya Bulerías. Aku akan coba main sedikit Bulerías. Oke.
Bravo, bravo.
Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias Mas Adin y Angela también untuk apa namanya pertunjukannya dan ceritanya tentang flamenco. Please stay di sini karena masih banyak pertanyaan menarik nih yang pengen dilayangkan ke Javier. Mungkin Angela sama Mas Adin bisa membantu menjawab. Javier mungkin kalau mau Javier, if you want to see all of the questions, I've sent it through your WhatsApp and you can see all of them. But I will just choose some of them. They are very interesting. First of all of the questions are really great. You have some wonderful and difficult questions, I think. Let's see if Javier can handle them. So do you want me to pick one of the questions or do you want to just pick one?
First of all, thanks a lot, Angela and Adien, because whatever I can say, explaining and so on, it's always way more interesting to experience it. And this is what they provide. So the real thing is them. I can talk and elaborate and but the real culture is to be lived and not just. So, well, muchas gracias. Thanks much, Angela and Adien. It's always it is fun for me, not just it is good fun for me. Now, having said this, on questions, Primanita, I've read the ones in the chat,
Yes.
in the chat here. So, but if you have supplemented few of them with those watching through YouTube, I don't know. You choose some questions for starters, and then I will also pick from the chat in here. So you should first go for the difficult ones.
What I'm seeing from the questions on Zoom, some people are asking about the Muslim population in Spain now. For example, Fausia, she asked whether there's any specific region where Muslim people live, or is it just all over the country? And Tiara asked if there's still any discrimination to Muslim, or if Islamophobia exists in Spain. And I think related to that, Faiza also asked whether Spain is a Muslim-friendly country.
Very well. About the population. Spain right now has lots of immigration, and the biggest community in terms of immigration is Morocco. There is 1 million Moroccans living in Spain. That makes for huge population. I mean, this is not to say that there are many other population from Islamic origin from elsewhere, but there is 1 million. They are heavily concentrated in the south because it is where it's closest, but it also in Madrid. So there is a big population, and there is the big mosque in Madrid, and so there is a significant chunk of population in Spain, and of course very many they have now they are Spanish citizens, so they were from whichever origins, but they have now acquired the Spanish citizenship. So. And then about the Islamophobia and how welcoming Spain or how Islamic friendly Spain could be, I will differentiate into two different levels. One is the legal level, where there is no absolutely no discrimination, and Islamic faith is fully recognized, and not only recognized but preserved and protected by the law. So this is at the legal level. If you feel discriminated, you can take any one of the institution to court, and you will be protected because this is your right. So it's at the legal level, there's full protection. Now, at the society level, well. Society is super varied. So, and this is more difficult to say. On the one hand, many elements in culture goes back to the Islamic origin. And I say the house of my parents, it's painted in white, and that, whether my parents knows it or not, goes back to the Muslim tradition. The way somebody is asking if there is an influence about gastronomy, huge, massive. The tapas itself goes back to the Islamic way of eating, which will be taking bites of different dishes and not eating one dish, which was the medieval Christian way of eating. So the tapas way of eating, it's very much indebted to the to it. But back to the difficult question: is there Islamophobia? Well, I would say that there is different levels of tolerance within the society. There are people who are very multicultural and open and and there are people who are very conservative and I would say identifies very much Spain with the Christian tradition. This is to say that I find Indonesia exactly the same. In Indonesia, you find very open-minded people and then very tolerant people and some other people who identify Indonesia only as the Islam Nusantara. So I'm trying to say here that Islam is fully protected at the legal level. And when it comes to society, it goes with the different parts of the society. Pretty much like we will find here in Indonesia. So it doesn't, it has to do with the different configuration of the society. But I would say that generally speaking, it's a friendly country. However, one of the things that the embassy is working on is on developing halal tourism, where there's no specific industry of halal tourism. There is halal industry in food production, very much, but there is no specific halal tourism, and that explains somehow why there are not so many tourists from Indonesia coming into Spain, because it has to be developed yet. So I think that will be covered, the first question. Ada lagi pertanyaan, Primarita?
Excellent. Yes, there are many more. Let's see. Okay, there's a lot here. Okay, this one is from Pipit Ardi Putri. Hola Javier, I've read about Jaén, I hope I pronounced that correctly, has probably the largest number of olive trees in Spain. Was olive brought by them or had it been planted in Andalusia before they came?
Okay. Olive trees are indigenous of all the Mediterranean, from the Lebanon down to northern Africa, to southern Italy, Greece, and Spain. So olive was indigenous from the entire region. It wasn't brought. And actually there was olive in the Roman times prior to the arrival of the Islamic conquer. So the answer is no.
Okay, simple answer to a long question. All right, so this one is from YouTube, from Didik Nugroho. He said, ¿Qué caracteriza a la arquitecta andaluza tras la conquista musulmana de la península ibérica? ¿Morisca o gótica?
Sorry, Primarita, I couldn't hear you well. And I'm a bit deaf. I'm growing old. So this is my mom's side.
It's okay. I will just summarize. So Didi was asking, what's the characteristic of Andalusian architecture after the Muslim conquer in the Peninsula Iberia? Is it more or?
I will mention two things. I have already outlined few things. First is the house being designed to keep freshness. The second is the integration of living aspects in the house, such as garden and water. Every Andalusian house has a patio, a sort of interior backyard, where you have plants, macetas all over, and you have also water. This is completely owed to the Andalusian tradition. But then not only the houses, but how the neighborhoods are organized is pretty much also it goes back to. But if I am to choose two things, it will be the houses being painted in white, and then the patios with the fuentes, with the water and the plants. So the house will be refreshed. Yes.
All right. Does that answer the question? Okay. I think we have time for two more or maybe three. Let's see. Okay. This is from Zoom. Eddie was asking, how was the attitude of minority religions, Christianity or Judaism, when the Islamic Empire entered Spain?
Okay. The first thing we need to understand is that politics at the time was done through war. There was no international treaties or agreement or anything at the time. The only version of politics was war. It took two civilizations a long time, more or less, up until 15th century, when one kingdom or one country will talk to another country and agree on something. Normally, they will disagree and conquer each other. So, and that way, the whole history is violent, whichever side you say. So the Islam came and conquered most of the Iberian Peninsula in the early 8th century. And then 800 years later, in 1492, Spain, the Christian Spain, which was, pushed to the north, came back and reconquered everything, the whole peninsula, and expelled. The importance, the importance of it is I will go back to tolerance. There were times when Al-Andalus, particularly at the beginning, was super tolerant. Under the Cordoban Caliphate was very tolerant. But then after the Cordoban Caliphate, when in the 12th century and later on in the 13th century, there were two new waves of Islam communities, one called Almohades and the second one called Almorávides, and they were super strict, they were very conservative, and they imposed intolerance within the Islamic. So same as the Spanish Inquisition and the expulsion of Islam and Jews from Spain, something similar happened on the Islamic side with the Almorávides and the Almohades. So basically, it's not so important if you are Christian or if you are Muslim or you are Hindi. The important is how tolerant you are or how intolerant you are. And that happens, and this intolerance, we have them in Indonesia and in Spain. We have them in the Andalus time with the Almohades and the Almorávides, but we also have it in the Spanish time with the Inquisition and the expulsion of the Moriscos, of the Moors, of the Islam, and then the Jews afterwards. So this more or less answers also a bit of the Islamophobia, but at the time they were pretty much warlike. That's why it was so important that the Al-Andalus settled for multicultural coexistence of different communities and of different religions. Bear in mind that under the Islamic cities, there were Christian bishops. So, and people and the religions they still have were celebrating mass and so on. So they were a minority under the Al-Andalus, but they were existed and respected. So, and that's why we choose Al-Andalus as one of the relevant examples of interreligious coexistence and multicultural coexistence.
All right.
Lucky.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So,
okay.
Javier, which question do you like the most? You can pick three.
I will choose three of them. One, I think it was Prabowo, if I'm not mistaken, asking for palabras, but the nombres en español que procedan sorry, I'm talking Spanish. A Spanish name having Arabic origins. Not just word, but names. And I will choose three. And the most important one is the last one. I will choose Almudena, Fatima, or Fatuma, but then Guadalupe. Now, bear in mind that the most important Catholic Virgin in Mexico, which is La Virgen de Guadalupe, it is coming from Spain, having an Arabic origin. This is something that not many people is aware of it. But the La Virgen de Guadalupe is the national religious symbol of Mexico by far. And that is having an Spanish name which an Arabic origin. Guadal it's very Arabic. So Mexico has pretty much, because of the Spanish Al-Andalus, has the national religious symbol backdated into Arabic. Then I will choose another one.
Wait. I want to know if Aristo is still here. If he's not here, then we will give the chance to someone else. Because I was looking for Aristo Prabowo. Is he still here, Aristo?
Maybe.
I guess not.
He went to sleep, or maybe, makan malam.
Yeah, he fell asleep. All right, just pick the next one. So Aristo gugur ya.
Yeah. Then somebody mentions about Garcia Lorca, and I couldn't be any happier.
About what? Sorry.
It was you, Megan?
Yes.
Beautiful. A friend of mine asked me to bring a sample of Spanish poetry, and I picked myself an anthology of Federico Garcia Lorca, he captures the essence of Andalusia, and probably he is, after Cervantes, the most important Spanish writer and the most modern one. And I will just add something. He is important because he captured the popular culture. Very often, art tends to be the upper class art, the authorities, the kings, the bourgeois, or the noble class. But then Federico Garcia Lorca, he found that the art of the popular culture, of the gypsies, of the people in the markets, of the poor people of the peasants in the country, he found the deep art of Andalusia in there, and he portrays and conveys that art, in my opinion, like nobody else. So I cannot comment enough to read and to get exposed to Federico Garcia Lorca. I don't know.
So Megan is still here. So she's Megan, you're the first winner. Let's find two more.
I have another question for Javier about Garcia Lorca. So through his work, he made all people of society feel valued, because he was talking about different people that maybe other writers had not written about. But is there a particular poem that represents Andalusia the best?
Garcia Lorca basically is he writes two different genres. He writes poetry, and he's ultimately a poet, and he also writes theater. I will be torn apart to choose between the two. But then, if I am to choose poetry, I will go for El Romancero Gitano, and then and for theatre, I think that probably La Casa de Bernal de Alba, which is a Spanish female tragedy, will deeply portray. But there is a movie called La Novia, and we screened that movie some time back. And I think that if you get exposed to see that movie, you will, even though it's not settled in Andalusia, they choose to settle in Aragon, but it doesn't really matter. It's beautifully done. And I will choose one poetry and one theatre play, but then any anthology of Garcia Lorca will do. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Javier, two more.
Two more?
Yes.
Muchas gracias, Javier.
Encantado. Mohammed asked a very elaborated question about the Islamic Inquisition and the expulsion of Morisco, but I will bring it back not to the discussion between Islam and Christianism, but I think the discussion is not between which religion, but between tolerance within religions and intolerance within religions, because even nowadays we have intolerance within Christianism, intolerance within Islam. So I will not oppose two religions, but I will rather oppose intolerance of fanatic communities within each religion, and I will rather talk about tolerance and fanatism in both sides. Primarita, would you choose any other question? Well, Aristo Prabowo, I mean, I was looking for that. Was there any contact between Al-Andalus and Indonesia? That is a very good question. I will say there was never a direct contact. Never, I mean, apart that we know of. But we know that there was, because there was a continual flow within all the Islamic geography. Many things came to Indonesia, and I have mentioned two of them. I have mentioned Ibn Arabi and Al-Mansur, which are scholars, classical Arabic music masters, and they are from Al-Andalus, and they are studied and read and commented here in Indonesia. So the contact were never direct at the time, among other things, because when the Spanish Islam start to decline is precisely when the Islam in Indonesia is starting. So the Islam in Spain finishes when the Indonesian Islam is starting. So there was not much opportunity for contacting. But yet, as part of the Islam heritage, I have pinpointed a few. But one of the things that we know is there will be much more. So we need more research. We don't have research from the Indonesian side or from the Spanish side. So we still need to do homework to find the real connection. But we know that there will be more.
Great. So that one is from Aristo, but unfortunately he has left. So one question.
One other question. Okay.
from me. From me.
Oh, okay, from you. Okay, sure.
Yes.
How can I say no to the boss? Yeah.
I like the question from Tiara Trisna Putri, who asked about the Islamophobia in Spain, because I think it's relevant these days. So I think it's a great question to ask. So Tiara, are you still here? Tiara, kalau masih ada, bisa kirim teks di chat mungkin. Namanya masih ada nih. Hola Tiara. Wah, nggak ada juga nih. Waduh. Yeah. Okay, so we got the third winner. The first one is Megan. The second one is, I think, Muhammad Tama, and the third one is Tiara Trisna Putri. Hooray. Please attention to the screen, because we have all the instruction here. So if you just want, the three of you, please take notes of this. Please send us an email to hispanicweek2021@gmail.com with these details. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to send you the prizes. Okay, so please include your name, your phone number, just for delivery purpose. Also, delivery address with Google Maps, if possible, and use the email subject winner of Cervantes. Okay. Did everyone get that? Yeah. All right. So Tiara, Muhammad, and Megan, you get all the details here, right? Do I get an okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, awesome. So just a reminder for tomorrow, we will have a super duper fun session, which is our version of speed dating for Español Básico with my good friend from Colombia, Sebastian. We're going to learn how to flirt, ngegombal ya guys,
Wow.
ngegombal kayak orang Latin. Jadi ini bakalan fun banget, dan apa namanya, kalau misalnya teman-teman biasanya ikut Español Básico, ini harus banget sih diikutin. Okay, so I think that's it for me. Muchísimas gracias, Javier. Terima kasih banyak Bapak Javier, Mas Adin, Angel, semua yang sudah berpartisipasi di acara ini.
Gracias a vosotros.
Semoga bermanfaat buat teman-teman sekalian. Dan semoga hari ini dengar musik yang indah, walaupun versi susu murni. Kayaknya ke bawah mimpi nih nanti. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Hasta mañana. Buenas noches. Adiós. Chao, chao.
Adiós. Muchas gracias.
Chao, gracias a todos. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being here, Angela.
It's been good fun, and I have to say that the questions were very good. So congratulations also to the audience.
Very proud.
Yeah, for bringing up difficult and interesting questions. Great.
Yes.
Sí, muchas gracias, Javi y todos. Y adiós.
Adiós, amigos.
Chao,
Oh.
Vamos a esperar hasta que la gente se vaya y hablamos un poco.
Yoshi está comiendo.
Yoshi siempre. Dios mío, estoy hambrienta.
Y yo, sí.
Vamos a cenar después.
Ya, yo macamalán. Ya, pasti.
No lo sabía sobre la casa de Andalusia antes, el Mentec.
It's such a pity that Abule has to introduce Jakarta to so many Betames here, and yet to explain Jakarta. You know, I think that I deserve an ole ole as well. No, but I want you to know, guys, that I informed Maria about the Spanish Week, and they were very happy that you were organizing all this. So this is a great initiative. And then I see with joy and gladness that we are covering every possible aspect within culture, from a very formal, academic, old-fashioned presentation of Andalusia, such as mine, to flirting skills in Spanish. I see a bit of everything here. Bueno, chicos.
Vale.
¿Qué tal?
Todo el mundo ya se fue.
La jefa. ¿Qué dice la jefa?
La jefa tiene hambre. Pero buen trabajo, Javi. Bien hecho. Ole.
And we make so much noise on the YouTube, especially on the flamenco section. People are ole, 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 ole. And then they comment a lot about the epic Susu Murni song.
Yeah. The epic cover of Susu Murni Nasional.
Susu Murni Nasional.
Yeah, Angela was singing an advertisement for milk, but in flamenco.
Yeah.
I think everyone will dream about that.
So it's a jingle in flamenco version, so it's going to be very epic.
Vale. Pues nada.